Man, I just got a brand new Garmin Fishfinder. Man, that's awesome. Is that the Garmin Striker Vivid? Yeah, man, it's the Garmin Striker Vivid. I'll tell you what, this thing's on fire. That's nice and all, but what about the waypoints you already have saved on your other Garmin Striker Fishfinder? What are you going to do about those? Yeah, I didn't think about that. Hey everyone, it's Paul from One Cast, One Fish. And today I'm going to be showing you how to transfer and share waypoints and tracks from one Garmin Fishfinder to another. And more specifically, we're going to talk about the brown and blue wire on the Garmin power cord and the role they play in that action. So stay tuned because you're not going to want to miss this. Before we get too far into this video, I want to discuss the compatibility amongst Garmin Fishfinders for sharing and transferring waypoints and tracks. The Garmin Striker series of Fishfinders does not have a slot for an SD or micro SD card. However, the transfer of data such as waypoints and tracks is universal among Garmin Striker Fishfinders, using a process called NEMA 0183 data transfer. Now don't get caught up in that name because the process is actually very simple. At the end of the day, the NEMA 0183 process is simply how these brown and blue wires on your Garmin power cord are going to be used to communicate data back and forth between Fishfinders. Now we're going to look at two likely scenarios where you may want to transfer waypoints or tracks between Garmin Fishfinders. Scenario 1. You have an older Garmin Fishfinder and you want to upgrade to a newer Fishfinder, such as the Garmin Striker Vivid. Or you're looking to upgrade to a Fishfinder with a larger screen. In this scenario, you're going to be wanting to do a one-time transfer of data between those two Fishfinders. Scenario 2. You have a bow-mounted Garmin Fishfinder and another Garmin Fishfinder somewhere near the console. Now in this scenario, we want to link those two units together, so that way there we can share data instantaneously between both units. Now let's take a look at scenario number 1, where we want to complete a one-time transfer from an old Fishfinder to a new Fishfinder. We're going to start by separating out the brown and blue wire from our first Garmin Striker power cord. And now we're going to want to strip off about 1/4 of an inch of insulation from each of those wires. And we're going to want to do the exact same thing to the other power cord. With the insulation stripped back from the wires on both Garmin Striker power cords, we're ready to make our connections. Like I said earlier, the Garmin Striker series of Fishfinders use the NEMA 0183 data transfer for sharing waypoints, tracks, and routes between Fishfinders. And that shared data is transferred on that blue and brown wire from the Garmin Striker power cord. Specifically, the blue wire is used for sending and transmitting data, and the brown wire is used for receiving that data. With that said, since we'll be transferring data from one Fishfinder to another, we'll actually be connecting the blue transmitting wire from Fishfinder number 1, which is our old Fishfinder, to the brown receiving wire of Fishfinder number 2, which will be our new Fishfinder. And since communication must go both ways between our old and new Fishfinder, we'll be connecting the blue transmitting wire from Fishfinder number 2, our new Fishfinder, to the brown receiving wire on Fishfinder number 1, our old Fishfinder. And that'll complete our NEMA 0183 communication network, thus allowing us to communicate and transfer waypoints, tracks, and routes between our old Garmin Striker Fishfinder and our new Garmin Striker Vivid. Now let's discuss scenario number 2. We have our Garmin Striker Vivid 5 mounted at the console and our Garmin Striker Vivid 4 at the bow. And we want to link those two Fishfinders together to instantaneously share data such as waypoints, tracks, and routes. The same concepts we just discussed also apply in this scenario. Again, we'll be wanting to connect our blue transmitting wire from Fishfinder number 1 to our brown receiving wire for Fishfinder number 2. And then we're going to connect our blue transmitting wire from Fishfinder number 2 to our brown receiving wire for Fishfinder number 1, thus completing the circuit. The only thing we want to consider when trying to link two Fishfinders together is that the wire link may not be long enough to connect our blue and brown wires between the Fishfinders, especially if your two Fishfinders are mounted very far apart. In this case, you have two options. 1. Splice new wire in to extend the length of the blue and brown wires, or 2. Garmin does have an available user data sharing cable. This user data sharing cable will add an additional 20 feet of wire for extending your data sharing distance. The user data sharing cable is available on Garmin's website and is part number 010-12234-06. However, this data sharing cable can sometimes be found on Amazon as well. and instructions for using and connecting the data sharing cable are listed on the Garmin website. Connecting the user data sharing cable is actually pretty simple, and I'm going to walk you through the steps really quick. Connecting the first device to the extension cable. First, connect the blue wire, number 1, of the first device to the green wire, number 4, of the extension cable. Second, connect the brown wire, number 2, of the first device to the white wire, number 5, of the extension cable. And third, connect the black wire, number 3 of the first device, to the black wire, number 3 of the extension cable. Now we'll connect the extension cable to the second device. First, connect the green wire, number 4 of the extension cable, to the brown wire, number 2 of the second device. Second, connect the white wire, number 5 of the extension cable, to the blue wire, number 1 of the second device. And third, connect the black wire, number 3 of the extension cable, to the black wire, number 3 of the second device. Now, as a helpful tip, the black wires are actually your grounding wires, and you're going to actually want those connected to the same ground point in your electrical system. And in most cases, that'll be the negative terminal of your battery. Now it's time for some practical applications, where I'm going to show you step by step how to actually transfer data such as waypoints and routes from your fish finders. First up, we'll be performing an actual one-time transfer of waypoints and routes from a Garmin Striker 4 to a new Garmin Striker 4 Vivid. Let's scroll down to and select User Data. Now select Manage Data. Scroll down to Data Sharing and let's turn it on for both fish finders. Let's go back to our menu and scroll up and select Waypoints. As you can see, our Garmin Striker 4 has waypoints that are already saved and stored on the fish finder. And currently, our new Garmin Striker Vivid has nothing saved. And if we back out and go and select routes, we'll notice that the Garmin Striker 4 currently has 2 saved routes. And again, nothing saved on the Garmin Striker Vivid. Now let's go back to our waypoints again and prepare to transfer data to our new fish finder. Again, we want to make sure user data transfer is turned on for both fish finders we'll be using. And now we want to connect our Nema 0183 blue and brown communication wires together for both fish finders. Give it a little bit of time to transfer all the data from the old fish finder to the new. And now, as you can see, our waypoints have been transferred to the new Garmin Striker Vivid. Now let's go back, and now we're going to go to our routes. And as you can see, our 2 routes have also been transferred over to our new fish finder. Now for our next application, we're going to have a Garmin Striker 4 Vivid at the console and a Garmin Striker 4 at the bow. And we'll be demonstrating the instantaneous sharing of data between these 2 linked units. Now let's look at what saving a waypoint looks like when 2 fish finders are linked together for instantaneous data sharing and transfer. Here we have a Garmin Striker 4 on the bow and a Garmin Striker Vivid at the console. The first step is to ensure that both fish finders are networked together using the Blue and Brown Nema 0183 communications wire. Second, you want to ensure that user data sharing is turned on for both fish finders. Now let's go to the waypoint map. As you can see, we currently have no waypoints saved in our current area. Now you can press the waypoint key on either fish finder. In our case, it'll be on the Garmin Striker Vivid at the console. Our waypoint has now been created and can be edited. You can see our waypoint name is 0001 and has a small fish icon as its marker icon. Now let's return to the waypoint map. On the screen you can see our newly made waypoint 0001 along with the small fish icon. And if we look in our waypoint database, you'll also see that waypoint 0001 is saved to both fish finders. One thing I want to make sure I point out is that once you connect the blue and brown communication wires and turn on user data sharing between your fish finders will be automatic. As you may have noticed earlier in the examples, there's no warning or confirmation messages prior to the data being transferred between fish finders. Another thing that I want to point out is that if you delete waypoints or routes while in data sharing mode, it will also delete them from both fish finders. So these are a few things you just want to keep in mind. This video has been a long time coming, and I truly hope that I was able to clear up and explain how to transfer data such as waypoints and route from one Garmin Striker Fishfinder to another. Now I'm sure there's going to be a few questions, so feel free to ask down in the comments section. And as always, be sure that you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time on the water.